Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tanya Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. I'm Tanya and I'm joined by my co-host Paul. Welcome, Paul. How are you going today?
I'm so good, thank you. And today I'm really excited. We're going to be chatting around some really, really important information because I think these questions that providers often ask themselves. Social media is sort of something everyone's diving into, and they might think, does a website even really matter? Well, today we're actually going to be joined by Greg Chadwick. This guy is an absolute legend. He's 20 years in the disability sector, working with thousands of participants, leading teams, managing services, running camps, and just a brilliant mind in the space because he's also 17 years as a digital marketer and content creator. Look at this resume: Director of Simply Stronger Supports, founder of the Provider Mentorship Roadmap, and also a massive contributor in what we do in Profitable Provider. Greg, mate, how are you going? Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's about time that we had you on. All the work that we do together, and we haven't had you on the podcast, and it's taken us 84 episodes to get here. So we apologize for that. We would have had you on a lot sooner.
No, it's awesome.
So I want to go back to that question that Paul just asked. With social media being so dominant, is having a website still essential for NDIS providers?
Yeah, for sure. I think social media, when we look at a digital footprint, social media, websites, these are all like one piece of a very large piece of puzzle. And our website is that link between the conversion. It's that last place where we get that opportunity to actually build some trust. So yes, our social media is very, very important. That's where we get an opportunity to also build some trust, to show people and prove to people that we're doing what we say we're doing. But then what happens is that people take that next step and they go Googling your business name. They start to look it up. You know, if you've met someone in person on in a networking event or whatever it is, they need to build more trust before they can actually decide to work with you. You've probably all heard know, like, and trust. This is our biggest trust tool, is our website. And it's our opportunity to get our messaging right, to get everything right so that we can then help nurture them to want to take action. Because if we don't do that correctly, 45% of people will leave your website in the first 15 seconds. So we want to make sure that we get all of these little elements right, so that, you know, we have this one big piece of the puzzle. And yes, social media is one, SEO, local SEO, all these sorts of things. We put them all together and we have an omnipresence.
Yeah. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. I think the footprint is really important, right? Like, it's all of that SEO or all of that data that's there out there about you. And I love that Daniel Priestley book. I love all of his books, but he really talks about, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it's something like you need to have X number of hours of content out there and X number of websites, X number of mentions, X number of, you know, footprint out there so that you can be found. And really, I guess a website is kind of fundamental to all of that as the homepage or the home of where you keep all of those assets and all of that information about your business, your services, yourself, your team.
Yeah, 100%. And if you want to picture it like an octopus and all the tentacles, at the top is the head, and then we have that website, and they're all going to go back to that. If you go, for example, search Chadwick Digital, for example, in Google, you'll see I take up the first 10, 20, 30 pages of Chadwick Digital. In the beginning, it was like I only had a website. And then it was underneath me would be like Chadwick Modeling Agency or the Chadwick Bozeman and that sort of stuff. And eventually I pushed them all down to the fact that I now take up that entire footprint. So if you want to see an example of how we can actually chip away at that footprint, just go Google Chadwick Digital and you'll see.
And does a website then complement what people are doing on things like Facebook and Instagram? Do they need to like be consistent and coherent, or do they have different purposes, and so they have a different way of communicating and communicating information?
Look, in a way they are different, but they're also very the same. Like they're both platforms that we get a chance to build trust, but really our social media is a traffic and a channel that is going to push people to our website. So at the moment, especially in our sector, because we have really small niches, most providers are not Australia-wide. They're not. Most providers are probably local, whether it be Gold Coast, Sydney, all that sort of thing. So SEO and keywords and all that sort of thing, outside of words such as like disability provider near me or something, they're not as effective in this sector, all these long tail keywords. So social media is really an excellent traffic source. And yes, we want to have continuity for sure. Like we don't want to have people like going out and having a great time and focusing on autism, intellectual disabilities, all that sort of thing on our socials, because that's the real stuff. And then we get to our website and there's a cookie cutter website where there's people in a wheelchair or with dementia or in their 60s or aged care. These messages have to align for sure.
Look, I think that everyone knows that a website is a really good idea. We've seen people probably spend way too much on websites, and then people went way too much on social media. But I'm going to hazard a guess that for most of our listeners, they're kind of going, yeah, but how do I get more referrals? And so what's the connection between a good website and getting more referrals?
So the connection is really the connection, if that makes sense. So I need to connect with what is on the page. When I build a website, I have a 3C process that I go through. So we've got clarity, credibility, and connection. Okay, I want somebody to actually land on a website and feel that connection, that, wow, that's interesting. I would like to pick up the call. So we do that through, I have a specific way that I build websites where I build it through a nurture sequence where we make sure the above the fold section is on point with our messaging. So we have all of our images based to our target market. If we're not working with dementia, we don't put someone or I should say the older generations or people in wheelchairs, we don't put that on a website. We focus on our messaging, and then we kind of funnel that to social proof, and then humanizing it. And if we can get some clarity, as soon as I land on the website, we got clarity. Then we build credibility, and that doesn't mean like PhDs and all that sort of stuff. There's little things that show, okay, this guy's credible because I can see he's a subject matter expert on people with autism or intellectual disability. And then we have connection where there's just something, I'm as a parent, I'm connected to this. I can see my son or my daughter or whatever in the faces of these people doing selfies or smiling and whatnot. So back to the original question is how do I get referrals? The work is really done by building relationships outside of your website. Building connections, building relationships. You know, we always talk about that in Profitable Provider, Paul. Connections, collaborations, and relationships. Then they will search you. Then they'll look you up to build that last point of difference and think, okay, now I'm ready to pick up the phone call. Because in the rule of marketing, we have 7 touch points before someone actually will pick up the phone. And it could be 1, it could be 7. And from what I've learned in the last year, that's probably grown out to about 11. So 11 touch points because of our constant scrolling and our constant adaptation to social media and whatnot. So yes, it's done in person, it's done outside, and then we secure the deal, I guess, with the website.
But like as you said, it's about you go out and have those connections, you build those relationships, and they come to your website. And when they get the same message, they get that consistency, that automatically just boosts that trust level because they're not getting those 2 different messages like a lot of people get. And I love how you mentioned, like, for instance, making sure the above the fold. So for everyone, like you said, when you first go to the website, it's a big chunk of whatever you see on the website is above the fold, right? Because it's in that section where a lot of people just kind of go, we're really good. and it's a massive missed opportunity. Could you really just say, like, what do you recommend for any of our listeners that they would have in that first chunk that someone's going to smack them in their face? What needs to be there?
Yeah, well, this is where you grab their attention. This is where you got 15 seconds to grab their attention. So the value proposition, that's the first, like 2 to 3 lines of what is it you do, who do you do it for, and add some secret sauce in there if you can to make yourself special, something that really helps you stand out. The other thing we want to do is obviously get our messaging right. So we have an image, and personally, to be honest, my favorite images is a support worker and a participant doing a selfie and smiling. These stock images, they don't build that connection I was talking about. They don't build that feeling that, like, oh, there's something about these guys that I just love. I want to pick up the phone call. And that's what we want. We want to pick up the phone call. And the last part, it really is having calls to action. So it could be a phone number up the top, an email. It could be reaching to go to the, you want to provide kind of as many as you can in that situation, because sometimes they might only need to go to your above the fold, and that's it. That's enough to actually get them on a call. So whether they like to text, whether they like to go to your contact page or pick up the phone or whatever, having those calls to actions, those options is really important as well.
So if I summarize then, a website, the purpose of having a website is to create credibility and connection. And you talked there about 7 touch points, and this is one of those 7 touch points they're likely to look at when they're researching you and looking for a provider. And above the fold, we want to talk about what problem we're solving and who we work with. And we want the images to be real. We want them to be authentic and to complement what their words are saying. And you want to be really clear with your call to actions. Is there anything there that I've missed as far as the key features that are the key features on a really great NDIS website?
On a really great NDIS website, you did touch on a point which I didn't mention, and it's the problems that they solve. Understanding, when we understand our messaging and when we understand who it is we support, and this sort of stuff kind of happens before you build a website, and that's probably the number one issue, is that people build their website first before they actually know who they want to support. Paul, you talk about dating your niche first. We want to understand and date our niche before we marry it. So before you build that website, you want to understand your why, your messaging, what are some of your offers, and what helps you stand out. When I build a website, I like to try and implement some offers. So, for example, Dungeons and Dragons nights, or things like this that help us stand out and make us look a little bit different, and just have these programs with a difference. Obviously, social proof and all that sort of things really, really important to actually help us boost that credibility. If we got case studies, you can put them in a carousel. If you've got simple literal B-roll videos where you've held a Dungeons and Dragons event and you just go 3-second video, 3-second video, 3-second video, put them all together with some nice music, people build a connection through video really, really quickly and effectively, quicker than an image sometimes. And the copy is one of the reasons why people often come to me, is because you look at the websites now and you can, and I can tell when it's done by ChatGPT. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use ChatGPT to do your corrections and use it as your assistant and whatnot, but it just doesn't have that level of connection. And when we're creating copy, we want to, some people say we want to talk to people in, I guess, layman's terms or terms that are consistent and easy. But I personally think there's a balance there. I think it depends on who our target audience is, because yes, we're going to have support coordinators, we're going to have OTs, we're going to have people that understand the industry language and want to see that. And then we're going to have people, our other target audience, which is people who are maybe parents or people living with a disability that don't know what supported independent living is, or community access, or person-centered care, or continuity of care, and all these sort of things yet. So if we can have a balanced diet here when we're actually creating our content, I think that is probably the best route, so we kind of please both people.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. So I'm not a website expert. I'm not going to pretend to be, but I've built some websites, and I write the copy for my own websites for the businesses I've been part of. But I would have to, and I look at a lot of websites for providers, I would have to say, if I'm to list the things that are the worst in NDIS websites more than other sectors, my list would go something like, the first thing that offends me when I look at an NDIS website, the first thing is stock photos or overly tokenistic, stereotypical images. And if you've ever looked at one of my websites, you'll see that I don't use images of people with disability. And that's because I don't want to be tokenistic, and I'm yet to find images that I think are great. In saying that, this influencer does have some great stock images you can download from their website for free, and I have sent clients there many times. But personally, having a person in a wheelchair with their arms up next to the ocean, it makes no sense. It's offensive. And I think it goes back to my early childhood training. In early childhood centres, you have to be inclusive of everyone, which is you have photos of people. And when this first came out, you would have, very stereotypical images. You would have you would have an American Indian in their whole outfit with the feathers. You would have, like the most stereotypical images. And it's like, hang on, at our childcare centre, why don't we have photos of our children? Because then that represents our community. And so we don't just take photos of the white kids, we take photos of every child, and therefore everyone is represented. And I think that that's the only real safe way to do it, if you have consent to take photos of your participants, is to involve them so that you are talking about the people you support. But you still have some issues there with mix of races, female, male, ages. And so it can be really tricky, and I'm too risk adverse. So I decide that I do infographics and things like that to try that not to be an issue for me. But I also, people with disability aren't my target market. So I'm not working with them directly. I work with providers. So my images are of providers who I do still try to be diverse, and I prefer using images of my clients. But images would be my first one. The second thing that offends me is what you just said a moment ago. When under services, they list the names of their registration groups. How does that tell anyone what you do? Oh, I do household tasks. I do innovate community participation. These words mean nothing to no one. And it just really shows that these people don't understand the service they're delivering, their client well enough, or the problems that they're solving. They're probably my top two things that annoy me the most. And then I'll add one more, which would be using AI only, and it just being AI slop. It just sounds like everyone else. We deliver high quality and support participants with person-centered practices. That tells me nothing about nothing. They're my three. What do you think, Paul?
I think that we've seen so many of those same images. In fact, I could probably say there's a little girl with paint on her hands, and everyone knows the image I'm talking about, because you can walk into an expo and see 5 businesses with it. You can open up any number of random websites and they're on there, right? And this whole idea of stock images is killing businesses' credibility. I actually think that when we've got providers who are worried about getting consent for images and that sort of stuff, the number one thing you can do is, if you don't actually have images of clients or anything like that, is actually having yourself.
Yeah.
Because you are your business. You're the one with the vision. You're the one with the dream. And you're the one who is essentially providing care, whether it be through you or through your team. And it's one of the most powerful things you can do. Now, that then brings in the whole idea of, am I too embarrassed to put my photo up on a website? But to be brutally honest, it's one of the most powerful things you have, because you're building your brand by doing that. So, I mean, yeah, I think as soon as I see those stock photos, I'm off instantly.
I think if you're too scared to put your photo on your website, that tells me you're running a dodgy business. Like, honestly, you can't be embarrassed when you're a business owner to begin with, because it's not even about you. It's about how that makes the people looking at the website feel. It's not about you and your vanity and the wrinkles you might have on your face. Although in saying that, I do get professional hair and makeup before I get my website photos done, because then it helps me with my vanity a little bit. But yeah, I think there's no place in it for being shy. You need to have a photo of yourself on your website. You can't get away with not doing it. And I really look at people's websites before I buy at them. And if they don't have who's in their team, it makes me feel like they're fly by night, going to disappear tomorrow, going to steal my money and never hear from me again. It doesn't make me feel like they're professional and
confidence,
large. Yeah, no confidence. Yeah. So I kind of gave you my list, Greg. What do you agree with all my things? And is there anything else you would add to my no list?
Yeah. So I completely agree. I love to humanize a website. So where we can add humanization is a founder section. You mentioned just then that you like to have a picture of yourself or whatever. Even if, like, I have websites where people have a picture of them and their family in a Christmas, you don't have to go that far, but just to be able to humanize yourself, depending on, I guess, what you're going for your brand. Some people like to go, oh, we're going for a family feel and all that sort of thing. And I think you mentioned earlier about it's difficult to, all these stock images and whatnot. So when we build a website, yes, I have stock images, paid stock images, all that sort of stuff. But, it does irk me, because it's like, all I need you to do is go and take some photos of you and your wife in the kitchen, making a stir fry or something like that, because, disability doesn't have to look like someone who has a disability. I'm neurodivergent. I mean, what does having a disability look like? So yes, exactly. I think you're right. And having that balance between diversification and all these sorts of things is really, really important. And I think that's what it comes down to, a balanced website. Yes, we want to focus on those things like clarity, credibility, and connections, but having that balance is really, really important.
So good. Hey, look, could you just give us a bit of an insight into your bigger vision? And you've said this around helping 30,000 providers across Australia. And how does that play a role into creating better outcomes for the industry as a whole?
So that's my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal. So this is something that I always had, like the 10-year plan. If I just have this is something that felt out of reach when I first started. I wanted to create this goal that was just out of reach, could hopefully get there. And along the way, hopefully, you just never know. I hope that I'm going to reach that. So the way, if I look at the amount of people that have watched my videos and all that sort of stuff, I've blown that out of the water already. But if we look at the people that I've actually jumped on a call with and whatnot, and actually sat down and been able to connect, that's something I'm still working on. And really, my vision here has always been education. And I think we're always going to have new providers coming through. We're going to have a new flow of providers constantly coming through. And if we can educate them now, if I can somehow impact 30,000 people, that is going to have a trickle-on effect for them to go and educate people, for them to lead the way and lead by example, and for them to actually, and hopefully I've been able to affect them, who will then affect other participants. So for me, it's always been impact. How can I impact providers to create a positive example, and have them impact on our whole sector, and I think, I don't know about you, Paul, but I've seen, Paul and Tanya, I've seen in the last couple of years, as consultants are getting more poignant on this fact, that the industry has just gotten so much better from this perspective. And it kind of sucks that the NDIS is trying to make it harder for us. But I think the standards are definitely raising the bar because of a lot of this education that's available now.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. I think you've got such an awesome goal, and that whole idea of that big, we're just going to make this happen, and big number. So You're on track for it, I hope.
To be honest, we got something in the mix, don't we, Paul?
Got something in the mix.
Myself, Paul, and Chris Lapper, we got something in the mix.
We're making that happen. That's good.
Keep an eye out.
So good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a bit of insight into websites. I know a lot of people have gone out and gotten really, really basic, just throw something up. People have gone really, really in depth, but there's some really, really cool tools and things that they can apply from today's session, just in regards to how they can get the most out of it, how they can build those connections, how they can be seen and be visible in the industry. So thank you so much for joining us today, Greg.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
And just lastly, Greg, if someone wants to reach out with you and wants a website, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Like I said, I'm everywhere on a digital footprint. So Google Chadwick Digital, Google Greg Chadwick. I'm happy to reach out on Messenger, Instagram, email, wherever you find me. I'd love to connect.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Amazing.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider podcast with Tanya Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.